good evening, good afternoon. Hope I was having a good day. I'm here with Nicholas Moy. Hey, Nicholas, how you doing?
I'm good, man. Good to be here.
Awesome, man. I've been wanting to get you on my channel for a while. So I know Nicholas works in cybersecurity.
Yeah.
That's a conversation we had before that you were popping up everywhere on social media for me,
Yeah.
while being on Facebook, being on YouTube, just like an ad to show up, and then I saw that you do things for like you do meetups for cybersecurity.
Yep.
I think using school or something like that.
hmm
And I seen you're very active on social media, YouTube and on LinkedIn. But can you tell everyone a little bit about you, who you are? Because I know you from YouTube. I don't personally know like what is your previous job experience and all that good stuff.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so a little bit about me. So I've been in the field for almost 2 decades, right? So I kind of went up the infrastructure background and then ended up pivoting into security engineering. So I have been, my specialty is actually in cloud security and software security. So for those of you that don't know what security engineering is, that's what it is, right? Anything, on the more technical side, but it has to deal with like architecture, has to deal with cybersecurity for applications, has to deal with cybersecurity for the cloud, what have you. So my last, job before I ended up doing, my own thing was working as a senior manager for Ernst and Young, where I was the AppSec specialist. I mean, I dealt with everything DevSecOps. So if you guys know what DevOps is, or if you've heard of DevOps, I deal with the security side of that. So cloud, software, security for all that, side of the house. A lot of corporations are moving in that direction, DevSecOps, and need cybersecurity specialists. And so I kind of help people learn what that is, develop the skill sets, and ultimately find a job in that area. So yeah, that's it in a nutshell.
Oh, that's cool. So have you ever worked at Helpdesk before?
I have, yes.
How's that? What was your experience in that specific? I asked that question because my channel mostly covers that,
Okay.
and people that watch me on YouTube. I'm known more as the help desk guy, even though I work in
Sure.
cybersecurity. People know I watch it, and there's like this push and pull between people in the IT community. It's like where you have people that and I don't agree with this, but you have people that, oh yeah, you should start out at a help desk and then you could work your way into cybersecurity. Yeah, I agree with that. Like,
hmm
they could definitely do that,
Yeah.
but then there's more than one way to go into cybersecurity. So what
Yeah.
do you think?
I think there's definitely more than one way, but the bottom line is this: you have to know your stuff. Like, cybersecurity is very vast. It's not the end result. It's not like, oh, I'm in cybersecurity, check the box, I've done it, I've made it. Cybersecurity, I mean, it's a whole nother specialty within itself. When I first got started in IT, I was doing PC repair, I was doing PC support, like building computers, selling them, like fixing people's viruses, taking them off, fixing printers, and IP phone system, IPX, and all that. Like, I did that, right? You don't have to do that though, but it helps if you do that because it helps you understand like what is the corporate infrastructure, or what are businesses actually using technology wise, and what are the technologies, what are the protocols, what are the different vendors that they're using, understanding that life cycle, and then understanding how to secure it. So it helps. You don't have to go down that path because I mean you can go straight into networking and deal with network security, or you can go straight into cloud engineering or cloud infrastructure and start working on security for the cloud. Like, you can do that, but you do need to understand some of the basic protocols. You need to understand some of the basic elements of IT as a whole, right? It is important. So as long as you feel confident and your employer feels confident, then you'll be good. But yeah, I don't think there's any right answer here. It's just like, make sure you know
Mm-hmm.
your stuff. That's really it. Like, if I were to say to anybody, how do you know that you're ready? Just make sure you know your stuff. And if your employer feels like you know your stuff, then you're probably good. You're probably good to go.
Yeah, and that's why like I stress the living hell out of learning
Yes.
fundamentals, and I always talk about like, you don't have to get your CompTIA
Right.
A plus. That's not that you could get it. It's definitely helps, but it's like you don't need to necessarily have it if you just get the book and read the
Yeah.
book and understand about operating systems, hardware, software, your iOS, your Android, your Mac OS X, your protocols, your port numbers. all that stuff that they teach you, it's vital to going into a job or going into
Right.
IT in general, because those things are going to actually, thing is that you gotta, yes, everyone has to, like, people that are watching this has to understand that the A
Yeah.
plus is just theory. But then we actually go and actually do the job. You're like, oh wow, I'm actually using
Right.
this for a job. So that's why it's important that you have those
Right.
fundamentals. So then when you go into a job, you don't want to go into a job and God forbid, like someone asks you, oh, a network engineer says, oh, Kevin, can you pull up the IP
Right.
address of this computer? And you're like,
Yeah.
what's an IP address?
Yeah.
Or can you tell me what is the MAC address of this machine? What's a MAC address? And you gotta know, like, when you're going into a job, those things are really important. So that's why I stress the living hell out of fundamentals, because I don't want you going into a job and then you don't know what you're doing. That's one. And then two is you end up getting in trouble because you don't know what you're doing, and then you end up
Right.
getting
Right.
fired. Just like, you try to avoid that, right? So it's just like, please try to learn the fundamentals before you jump into advanced topics, because a lot of people want to be the next Mr. Robot. That's not really a thing. So it's just like, you can learn that and do
Yeah.
all that cool stuff, but like, you start at your basic level first, and then you go into
Yeah.
other things,
Yeah.
if that makes sense.
It
So
takes time. Yeah,
that's my
absolutely. Yeah.
and everyone's journey is different. Everyone's journey is the same. So you have to understand, like, it's probably gonna take you a lot longer to understand something versus someone else. We don't know, because everyone's
Right.
way of learning is different, right? So maybe you're learning something, you're struggling like crazy. You're like, man, how did that person
Yeah.
learn how to do that? And I can't learn it, right? The thing is that you can't compare yourself to someone else, because you have to
Yep.
understand that everyone learns differently. It's just like, the most important thing, Nicholas, that I talk about, is like, when you learn how to learn, that's when you become a good technician or a good IT person, is when you learn how to learn. So what I mean by that is, like, oh, you know that if you watch a video, you learn that way.
Yeah.
So figure out your method of learning. Obviously, like, some people are hands on,
Yep.
some people may want to read a book. Maybe someone wants to watch a video and they learn that way. Once
Yep.
you figure out what's your way of learning, then you could start learning. You can start doing, like, same with certification. You start
Yeah.
learning how to understand that information. So, but I was gonna ask you about, so like,
Mhm.
you say you worked in help desk, you do support, you did infrastructure support, and I'm sure you were doing hardware support, and I'm sure you had like this incidents where a customer is upset and angry with you, and the customer, like, is so angry, and you're like, oh shoot, and then you become like Dr. Phil, and then become like Gordon Ramsay, and like, how do you handle stressful situations like that when you work with customers that are upset and angry?
Yeah, I think so. First off, this is definitely going to play a role with your end consumer, your end user, right? The person that you're actually facing, the one that's dealing with the issues, but then also the greater corporation, right? And this is kind of how you make a name for yourself. This is kind of how you become that favored technician that is requested on site for that client. That person, the reason why they're calling you is because they have a problem. And if you're over there trying to calm them down, trying to make them feel like, hey, listen, everything's okay. We're going to figure this out. Everything's going to be good. You're going to have a better success rate of not only like alleviating the pressure from what they're putting on you when they submit that ticket, and when they're like calling you say, hey, all this, the world's melting down, like we need to solve this ASAP, right? If you're over here, calming them down, like, listen, the printer's going to be fine. We're going to figure this out. We'll work together, blah, blah, blah. That's key. And then that's going to end up kind of like elevating your status within the corporation, because they're going to talk highly of you. Their peers, they're going to end up speaking highly of you, referring you, and you're going to kind of like elevate. I don't know if you're within an MSP or, what if you're internal or whatever the situation is. But like the more that you can expose that empathy, the more that you can kind of like, I say exfoliate, but that's kind of a bad term, but just to like really just like provide them with that empathy, like, hey, listen, we've got this under control. Calm down. That's like the main thing. And when you can do that, everything's gonna be good. Like, let them know that everything is under control. Technology breaks. We all know this. The phones, the computers, there's patches, things disconnect for whatever the reason. We're going to solve that problem. Let's relax. Let's just, calculate this out technically, one by one, little by little, we'll resolve the issue. And as soon as they know that, everything's good. If as long as you can do that and you can kind of like show them that you have the matter under control, you're going to be good to go.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. It's like if you show that you care is very important. And when you become that go-to guy or go-to girl that is like, oh, this person is amazing. They have great customer service. You get recommended, and then sometimes you could be too good to the point that they email you directly or message you directly through Skype or Teams or whatever.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, that guy's awesome. But then also you don't want to be that person that is also
Right.
bad as a bad tech. And like, yeah, that Kev guy's an asshole. I don't
Yeah.
want him fixing my computer. So like it's important that you
Yeah.
build that relationship with the customer, a positive relationship, and obviously follow up with the customer,
Yes.
whether it's whatever ticket it is. Follow up with the customers, make them feel happy. Make sure you're following up because sometimes anyone watching this, like sometimes if you work in IT support or help desk, talking about like
Mm-hmm.
the low level jobs, you may not be able to do everything. So
Mm-hmm.
you may have to like escalate the ticket, but the ticket's still with you. So you have to like communicate with the customer and let them
Absolutely.
know what's going on behind the scenes. When you let them know what's going on behind the scenes, they'll be
Yeah.
happy to know that at least someone's working on it. So you don't want to
Yeah.
show that the ticket's just in the queue and no one's doing anything, right? You actually want to communicate back and forth between your cybersecurity guy. Maybe he needs to allow a certain application. Maybe you're working with who
Sure.
knows networking, and they have to
Yeah.
like whitelist a website, right? And allow the website so you can log in because maybe they're trying to do some sort of business proposal for
Yeah.
Bloomberg
Right.
technology, right? For trading or whatever, right? So you always want to like communicate with the customer and let them know that someone's working on it and that it's being looked at. You don't want to
Right.
just have a ticket in the queue and then no one's doing anything. There's no like comments. There's no like going back and forth. And obviously, what I always say is like keep your emails tracked. So you have like your emails going back and forth. Maybe you could download that email and then put it on the ticket or a screenshot of the person that you're working with that's part of the engineering team and that
Yeah.
they're working on it. Just put it there on the ticket. Like all that stuff needs to be documented. And yeah, the hiring manager will love you
Yep.
for that. They love it when you do
Little
documentation. So those
CYA.
things are really
Yeah.
important. I just want to
Absolutely.
throw that out there.
Absolutely.
And then when you go into later, like when you go in later in your career and you become a manager or when you go
Mhm.
into certifications like ITIL,
Yeah.
you start to understand why those things are important. Especially coming from a ticketing systems perspective, or especially if you work for an MSP and an MSP charges for XYZ service, they charge for these services, that ticket actually is a service that they charge for, which is why
Mhm.
you create tickets for
Yep.
those specific things, if that makes sense. So every company is different, but like just saying like be mindful of communication, be mindful of the
Yeah.
SLA, of how important that ticket is. Be mindful of who that person is, because all the people that I have worked with in the past, like especially the executives, their
Mhm.
name will show up red because they're a VIP. So the time for that person is less than 15 minutes. I can't be wasting time with that person. So it's like, okay, we got to get this done. And if it doesn't work, I have to escalate it. It's just like, I wasted 15 minutes. I still can't get this to work. I can't be like, oh, yeah, I'll just keep you for
Yeah.
another 15 minutes. You can't do that. So you're going to have to escalate the ticket.
Yep.
Obviously, like I said, every company has their own way of doing things. Every company is different. There's a service level agreement. Then obviously there's your P1s, P2, change management, all this other stuff for ticketing. It gets very involved in change management and all this other crazy stuff. But yeah, Nicholas, I was gonna ask you more about you. And so you
Mhm.
worked in financial services, and like me, I worked in financial services. You worked in a lot of big companies, and I tell everyone like those big companies, they pay really well. They take care of you when you work, especially in help desk. Like I worked in help desk for was it Blackstone Group, a big financial firm, and yeah, they pay really well and they take care of their employees. And I'm pretty sure that you were being paid really well when you worked in that company as the manager. And for you, like so as a manager, I like to ask this question because you were a manager right, before. So as a manager, like what things are important for someone, whether it's help desk or cybersecurity, like what things are important for someone trying to get into like what do you like if you see like a resume, someone comes up to you, they have a resume, they have this sir, that sir, they do this, they have that. Like what's like a big win for you? You say, oh, this is great that they have this. I will definitely hire that person.
That's a loaded question, Kevin. One thing that I look for in a candidate is a can-do attitude, right? It's more about anyone can pass the test. I mean, some people pay to pass the test, which We won't get into that. But it's very much, as a manager, I can tell if somebody really knows their stuff. And to go a step further, I can tell if somebody is going to be a good fit because they understand the nature of the business to some degree. Doesn't mean that you have to really know it, right? And like, you don't have to have worked in it, but like, we're talking about tech support, we're talking about empathy, we're talking about what does the end user need, right? When they're trying to do their job, the end user, we're talking, right? They're trying to get a job done. And if they can't connect the right technologies, whether that's software or hardware or whatever, to get the job done, they're frustrated. And so we need to meet them where they're at the tech support level, right? And we need to help them solve their problem first by alleviating, diffusing the matter, their emotions, and allowing us to get to a level playing field where we can think critically about the situation. So if we're talking tech support, that's kind of like the goal. We're talking cybersecurity. It could be anywhere from like, hey, we've got a data breach, there's a hacker involved in our environment, or, in my side of things in DevSecOps, it's more like before the hack happens. It's more about like trying to architect before a hacker gets involved, policy, architecture, cloud, infrastructure, software. Like, it's more about that. But regardless, when I'm looking at a candidate, I'm looking at a candidate that understands how to, understand the business a little bit, but understand or be adaptable in a situation where they can meet with their clientele or their end users where they're at, be able to communicate well, be able to problem solve well. Certifications or not, I mean, certifications can be helpful. It helps you drive awareness and helps you understand the situation, the technology, and what have you. But you're also a human being, and you're working with human beings. At the end of the day, that's what it is. What's the difference between you as a technician or as a technologist versus the person that you're working with is you're a little bit more skilled in the technology than they are, but you have to be able to bridge the gap. You can't be all nerded out. I know we love to be the nerds, and we love the technology and the software and the technology. I get it. But at the end of the day, you're supporting a business, and business have people both within and with, as their customers. So you have to be able to meet with the people and tie in and connect the dots between the technology and the people and tie it in together. So when, as a manager, what I'm looking for, regardless of the role that I'm hiring for, I'm looking for somebody that understands that, right? If it's for a technical support role, I'm looking for somebody that understands the technology that we deal with as a business and the customer, and how can we connect the dots there. If I find some nerded out person that doesn't know how to speak, doesn't know how to be a human being, isn't smiling, isn't friendly, isn't able to relate with me as a hiring manager in the interview, that might not be a good fit. We need to find personality here, right? If it's cybersecurity, it's understanding the threats, the risk, all that stuff, and then the people that they're serving at the end of the day. And then ultimately the business and the challenges that the business is facing, right? Businesses want to be profitable, but we have to be secure while we're doing that. So it's like that happy balance. So finding a right person that understands both sides of that.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you for IT support or help desk. Like, and I tell everyone this, and like, this is why I tell everyone help desk is not for everyone, because you got to be good with customer service. That's one, and then number two is, if you don't have empathy and you're not good with soft skills,
Yeah.
you're probably not going to be able to do the help desk job. You're going to have a lot of problems because we work with customers, we work with clients, we deal with customers all day. If
Yeah.
a customer screams and yell at you, you can't be screaming back at the
Exactly.
customer. You got to fix their problem, right? And you also have to understand that they're frustrated at the problem, not at you. So like, some people they take it personal when it's not a personal thing. It's more like they're trying to get their job done, and they probably have a deadline that they have to meet, and the computer's not working, and it happens to be a bad day for them because they have to try to get their deadline done,
Yeah.
and they have things they're working on, projects, whatever it is, right? So that stuff is really important, and also the important part is like not being super technical. Because a lot of people that
Yeah.
work in IT are super duper technical, but then they don't have the ability to communicate, which is a
Yeah.
problem, especially coming from a cybersecurity perspective. Like, I talk to executive folks all the time, and there's a like this conversation always comes up, and I tell everyone like I rather have you could be smart, but I rather have someone that has great soft skills and is able to talk to the executive level, like they're your
Right.
mom and dad, like they understand what they're saying, and it's not super technical. Versus having someone that is super technical, because at the end of the day, for example, if you're trying to introduce CrowdStrike,
Yeah.
Sentinel-1, or Microsoft Sentinel, you're trying to like set up a SIM solution, maybe an antivirus or something like cybersecurity related, and you don't know how to bring that up as a conversation and as a cost, and also why it's going to save the company money, and you're being super technical, they're probably going to go buy the coffee machine versus buying whatever you're trying to recommend. So like it's very important that you're super non-technical with the executives, because their job is to do their job and your job is to do your job. So they're not going to understand what you're talking about. So you got to be super non-technical as possible and make it relatable to the customer or the whoever you're working with. It has to be super non-technical, because obviously they don't do IT. They don't know what a sim is. They don't know what a virus is. They probably wouldn't even know what malware is. So it's just like you're gonna be like, okay,
Yeah.
how does that work? So you have to explain all that stuff to the executives. So you guys understand all that stuff is really important, which is like that's important coming from a security perspective. And then what you said earlier, that's important too, because if you're gonna hire someone, they have to be good with customer service. Obviously, they have
Yeah.
to mesh well with the team, because they don't mesh well with the team, that becomes a problem, because then that one bad apple is gonna ruin the rest of the apples. So you don't want to have that problem.
It
You
really
do not want
can.
to have a problem.
And
Mhm.
as a manager, that's something that I'm keeping in mind, right? If I feel like somebody's not going to jive well with the rest of my team, I'm going to be very reluctant to hire, or I'm going to have to reconsider how I'm structuring the team, right? If that person's baller, but I've got another person that I feel like there's going to be conflict, hopefully not. I mean, most people, I feel like, I would say this: be a team player, be coachable, be willing to help. What I like to tell my students is have a servant attitude, right? Be willing to help, be willing to listen to feedback, be willing to be coachable. If you have that and you're eager to learn and you're hungry to learn, you're winning. I mean, that is what this game's all about, right? But if you have an ego, if you carry that into the workplace, oh, I'm smarter than, oh, blah blah blah. Like, no, there's no place for that. There's no place for that. So there's always going to be someone that's smarter than you, and we always have opportunities to learn. So
And
absolutely,
that's the reason why I love being in a room when someone's smarter than me, because I have an opportunity to grow and learn myself. I'd rather be in a room
yeah,
where I'm learning than I'm not learning at all. It doesn't make any sense, right? I'm gonna go find another room. So it's just like when you have an opportunity
exactly,
to learn, take it as you can, and yeah, just be able to learn and be able to listen. Those two things are important, because sometimes someone is trying to teach you something. You're like, oh, that person's not better than me. It's not. We're trying to help you. It's like if
yeah,
I tell you to do something, it's for a reason. It's not because I feel like it, or I want to torture you. It's not nothing to do with that. It's just like if I
yeah,
tell you to do something, it's for a reason, for you to learn and grow, right? So those things are important. Opportunities to grow are always there. It's just you have to have the willingness to learn. Obviously, you have to have the willingness to do some research on your own too, which is another conversation that I always have. Like when you work with your team, you work with your peers, you work with your manager is going to go back to you because you're the manager. Works with the manager, and the manager is going to go back to you, and the manager is going to be like, "Did you spend at least 2 minutes or 3 minutes researching that before asking me a question?" Because you're not even taking the time to do research, and then you like ask a question to one of your team members or maybe your manager, they're gonna get a little annoyed. I'm like, you should be doing research on that. Like you could have got it. I could have googled that and it would have taken me 5 minutes. Why didn't you do that? Right.
yeah,
So those things
yeah.
are very important, because if you don't have that, you got to remember that half our job is googling. So like if you
It's
don't have
true.
that mindset that I'm gonna go and try to Google the answer and try to get some information before I
Yeah,
ask for help with whether it's my team member or my manager, it will help you down the long run. That's important.
yeah,
And then the other important thing is if you go to your Confluence page, like your KB article, knowledge base
yep,
article, and
yep,
you find something there and you can't find an answer for anything, like you're searching everywhere and it's like, yeah, okay, we don't have an answer for that, but this is how we do it. And then they show you how to do it. And then you could make an article on that and put it in your knowledge base article. Your manager is going to love you because
yeah,
now there's documentation in there,
yep,
and it looks good for you and it looks good for your manager. And then when you start documenting a bunch of stuff that wasn't originally there, when it comes to your performance and your KPIs, you have something you could talk about and share with your manager. Your manager's like, oh yeah, you did this or you did that. This is what I did. This is what I did. So then when you have your one-on-one with your manager and they go over your review and they do all this stuff with you, you have something you could showcase to your manager. And they'll give you a raise or they'll give you a promotion or they'll give you
Yep.
something.
Yep.
So those things are important.
Because you're showing yourself as valuable, you know. I mean, yes, you're doing your job. You're doing the bare minimum. You're answering the tickets, you're responding appropriately, but when you go above and beyond, that's the moment where like, okay, what opportunities does, Kevin have or whoever here, that's going above and beyond what we have, the parameters, whatever those metrics are supposed to look like. Corporations, they have these things, it's all set up. For me, I'm just letting spilling the beans for you. But when we see that a person's contributing above and beyond, that's a winner. So it's not, yes, I mean, at the bare minimum, have that empathy, have that technical skill set, be willing to be a team player. But when you're able to go above and beyond and be a problem solver, think critically, think outside of the box, that's when we're talking promotion. That's when we're talking about extra bonuses. The hardest thing that this is, I'm kind of going off on a rant here. But the hardest thing that people don't do is think, right? Like you said, Google. Well, hey, this isn't inside of the knowledge base. All right, well, maybe we need to contribute to the knowledge base. We need to add to the knowledge base. The technology changes. We all know this. Every year, every couple of months, the technology changes. It's time to update some things. Let's go ahead and start drafting up a little proposal on what we can contribute to the knowledge base and make this even better, right? So when you're that key player that's going above and beyond, seeing, hey, I think this thing needs to be changed. Let me talk to my manager. Let me draft up a little, Word document or something that it'll help contribute. It'll help to push the company forward. It'll help the customers that we're serving. That right there, that's what's going to help you stand out from the crowd. Whether you're in tech support or networking or systems engineering or cybersecurity, it doesn't matter. When you go above and beyond like that, it's going to help you win. So big player.
Yeah, no. Yeah, no, I 100% agree with you. That's what I do. That's what I do right now. Like, I have articles that I write all the time because we get patterns. We get certain tickets that come in the queue, and then nobody knows how
Yeah.
to do them. So it's like, all right, let me make a knowledge base article on that, and then people could just go and refer to that
Mhm.
Confluence page, and then they would know how to handle those tickets. And my manager gave me a pat in the back. He's like, "Man, no one wanted to do it, and you did it. Like that's awesome." So it's like when you, and I know documentation is boring, but it's really important when it comes to going into a job, especially if you're working
Yeah.
with a team and you're working with whatever
Yeah.
job you do. You're gonna be dealing with
Oh,
documentation. You cannot
absolutely.
avoid it,
Especially in
right?
cybersecurity.
So
100,000%.
yeah,
Yes. Documentation. Yes.
yeah. Me and Nick had this joke because like I spend half my day on Excel because I'm like pulling out reports for my audits
Yeah.
and everything, and we have audits here and there, and I have to pull up reports, our inventory, our patch management systems, and if we are SOC 2 compliant, if we are PCI compliant, if we have DLP in place, all that stuff. Those reports
Right.
need to be taken out and then submitted and reported to the auditors, and those things are you need to have that stuff in place. I can't be like, yeah, we don't have that, and I'll get in trouble for that,
Oh, we
right?
don't have that? Let's
So
draft that up right now.
yeah, exactly, exactly. Before you get
Exactly.
audited.
Exactly. Yes.
So yeah,
Right.
those things are important. And when you go into when you go in, when I went into, and just to change the topic a little bit, when I went into help desk and when I had to do like decommission
Mm.
and then provisioning, and then make security group changes and all that stuff, and I didn't know that was part of cybersecurity. So I didn't know that was part of
Yeah.
identity access management. So like people tell me, "Oh yeah, you did some identity access management." So I'm like, "What? What is that? What are you talking about?" And then it's like, "Oh yeah, well, you're decommissioning an account. You're making change controls, and you're making change policies, and you're giving someone limited
Yeah.
access, least privilege, and all that stuff."
Yep.
That's part of cybersecurity. And I was like, "Oh, I didn't know that." So yeah, that's part. All of that is part of, like whatever you're doing at help desk.
Yep.
Some of that stuff is cybersecurity. And I'll give you an example of that. I was working with a company, and I ran PowerShell and I ran a scan on this machine and I was using Rapid7 and that's cybersecurity. I didn't know that. I was like, oh, this is Kev, that's cybersecurity.
Yeah.
You're running a scan using Rapid7, using a
Yeah.
third party tool, and you're running a scan. And then they gave me access to Splunk, and I started running log analytics. And I'm like, oh, I didn't know that was part of cybersecurity. So like, you guys just keep in mind that you're doing a help desk job, so
Yeah.
you're probably doing some security stuff, especially if you're decommissioning an account, or you're provisioning an account, or you're providing certain level of access to security, like whether it's a user account through security groups, or maybe security
Mhm.
changes in Office 365 through identity access management through PIM or just-in-time
Yeah.
access. All that stuff is cybersecurity related. So
So
wanted to throw that out there.
cybersecurity not only spans to the digital side of things, it also spans to the physical side of things. Because cybersecurity is covering everything from when somebody touches their badge to an access point to open a door, or a camera is scanning them from outside of the building when they pull their car into the parking lot, to the moment that they log in with their password and username into the domain on their workstation. Like, it covers everything, right? If we look at the CISSP domains, it covers everything from physical security to governance, risk, and compliance, to security engineering, to SOC anal, like all different facets of cyber. It's so vast, right? So what I tell my students, if they have a background in physical security, great, we can count that towards cybersecurity because it is literally in the domain of the largest cybersecurity certification in the world. Like, like, and if you work in the help desk, like, what you're doing from, hey, we're provisioning access to an account. This account just onboarded. We're just issuing them a new workstation, a phone, and all that stuff. Oh, they need access to this network's drive, but not that network drive or whatever, right? All of that stuff is part of what we do in cybersecurity. And you can start from the more general side of things, which is what I would incorporate all of that in. That's under that umbrella, to the more hyper specific things like penetration testing or DevSecOps or cloud security. Like, you can niche down too, but it's still in cybersecurity. And I think that IT as a whole is really evolving in that. I think back in the day when I started, probably when you
Mm-hmm.
started too, Kevin, it's like security was just part of what we did. And eventually we started to realize, oh, wait a minute, like, we've been working in IT for all these years, and now this is kind of cybersecurity. Like, we can kind of niche down into this. But at the end of the day, that's really it. Like, if you work in tech, or you're, in physical security for a company, like, you have an opportunity to elevate and pivot into cyber, learn the technology, understand the basics, and you have some great opportunities ahead of you. Yeah.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. When people ask me like, oh, like what's your physical security? It's like, oh yeah, you have
Yeah.
your security key. Like I have this key, and then as a
Sure.
IT person, I would configure it and then set it up on a laptop. You plug it in USB, and then
Sure.
that person can log in with their biometrics with their thumb, and they just log in. So as your security is right there, and then obviously another security example would be MFA, multi-factor authentication. Like whether someone logs in, they set up and as a help desk person, we do that. We set up MFA for an end user, and like, oh, I have to log in, and I can't connect to Cisco VPN because I need to have MFA on first. So I can't log in. Kev, can you help me set that up real quick? Yeah, I help you. And then they scan their phone and they get the code and they get the 6-digit
Yeah.
code, and then they could actually log into VPN. It works fine after that because there's a security group associated with Dual
Right.
or Okta, which is why they can't log in because they don't have it set up.
Yeah.
So, like you said earlier, all that is security related
It
stuff. We just
is.
we
It
just think
really
of
is.
it as his help desk, but
Yeah.
it's not. It's more than help desk. So, but I was gonna ask you a question about certifications. I hate asking this question, but I have to ask it. So, what are your thoughts on certifications? Like, what is like, what is like? Because I know you've been in IT for a really long time. Like, you've been in IT. You're like you've been in IT since 45 BC. I'm just kidding. But so for IT like certifications, like what is your like? I'm not sure if you ever watched like those videos on YouTube, like, oh, this is my tier list of A, B, C tier list, right? Like, oh,
Okay.
these are the
Yeah.
shirts that I would get, that I recommend if you're brand new, and then these are the ones that I would get if I already have experience. So like, what
Mm.
do what do you what do you think, or what's your advice for that?
That's a loaded question. Because it depends on where you're coming from, right? If you're a software developer, I'm not going to tell you to go after like some of the more infrastructure side of things. If you're on the infrastructure side of it, or help desk, PC support, that kind of thing, like I don't know, it's just different. It just varies. It varies so much. Here's what I will say based on years of experience. Okay. If you have been in IT, and I'm talking PC support, network engineering, software developer, cloud engineering, whatever, like pick something, okay? Anything related to IT. If you have been in IT for 5 years or more, you need to start focusing on probably the CCSK and the CISSP, okay? But granted, you need to have a very good understanding of various components of IT. Now, if you go for the CISSP, it's going to force you to really know your stuff because you can't pass that exam unless you really know your stuff. If you don't know network, you don't know what an IP address is or a subnet is, guess what? You're going to have to go learn it. Like you can't pass the exam without knowing it. So if you're a software developer and you're a little rusty on some of those areas, you're gonna have to fill some of those knowledge gaps. If you're a little bit more greener, you're coming in from the help desk, maybe you're coming in as a college graduate, you're just trying to figure out, what's the lay of the lands. I think, best bang for your buck, security plus, I don't like advertising it just because I think that it's not going to be enough to get you a job, but it's going to help you with broadening your opportunities of getting a job. Security Plus is going to help you with getting a job both commercially and federally, because as part of that, what is that? The DoD was 8481 or 8470, something like that. They recently changed it.
There's a requirements. Yes, the requirements. You have to have the CompTIA certifications, or you have to have Security Plus at least to work for the Department of Defense.
Yeah, I mean there are different positions that don't require it. You don't always have to have it, but it's a good idea. I mean, just to have it under your belt, it's going to broaden your opportunities. Just period. Okay. You don't have to have that. If you want to be like more on the technical side of things, so maybe DevSecOps, cloud security, application security, SOC analyst, it's a good one to have. If you want to go more GRC route, more paperwork, more people oriented, you're not as technical, you like dealing with people and all that, the CISA, the CISA, that's a good one to get. Eventually you can get the CISM, that's a good one to get. That's more governance, risk, and compliance. So you're dealing with more people, more paperwork. It's just less technical. Let's just put it that way. But if you're like, hey, I don't want to deal with people as much, I want to go down the technical route, Security Plus, CCSK, I think anything in cloud, you're good to go. Like just straight, blank, like I'm just going to shoot it the way it is. Corporations are moving towards the cloud for their infrastructure. They don't want to deal with the overhead of having data centers. I think many corporations, they need to have that, but the end of the day, corporations are going in the direction of cloud. So eventually things are going to either be hybrid or entirely on the cloud. I've worked in corporations where it's both. So if you go for the CCSK, the Certified Cloud Security Knowledge certification, or the AWS security, what is it, the security specialist certificate, anything regarding that, you're fine, like for the most part. It's in the right direction. It's where the corporations are headed, right? What I tell most people is like try to understand where the money is flowing and position yourself in that area where
Mm-hmm.
you can offer value. At the end of the day, that's what it is, right? If corporations are spending money in cloud, that's where we need to be. We need to start to understand what that is so we can offer value. If corporations are spending money in software, we need to be there. If it's penetration testing, which I mean, there's plenty of corporations that need that, we need to start to understand that too. A whole different subset of what I do, but you get the picture, right? Be where corporations are spending the
Mm-hmm.
money. That way you can make the most out of your investment in time and money and yourself as a professional, right? For me, it was cloud,
Makes
it was
sense.
software, it was compliance. That's what I did, and that's what I teach. That's what I tell people to do.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I For me, like just like you as a long-winded answer, it depends. It depends on the like where you're coming from. Also, like the certification stuff, it really depends like where you're coming from. But also depends like I would
Yeah.
recommend different
Yeah.
certifications for different people. Like an example of that would be like if you're going to be a network admin, you'll probably go
Sure.
more the CCNA route
Sure.
versus trying to get an A
Right.
plus or whatever. Like it's completely different. For cybersecurity, I'm always going to
Yeah.
recommend Security Plus as a starter, and then you work your way into other certifications. But then the thing is, like everyone I know has Security Plus. It's just like everyone has it, right? So like the other thing is, I always tell everyone is to like build a portfolio and build a home
Yeah.
lab, and then add that experience on your resume, which is going to make you stand out. So if you have a lab, you have something set up, whether it's using a SIM
Yeah.
solution or maybe some sort of red team lab, then that's definitely going to help
Yeah.
you out. And you could add that stuff on your resume. So just like Helpdesk, because in Helpdesk, I had videos on that resume for resume writing for Helpdesk. I have videos like learn about Active Directory, Office 365, what is MFA, what is MDM, what is SSEM, what is software deployment, what are RM tools, all that buzzwords that I'm using right now, like
Yeah.
all that stuff, you're gonna see it in a work environment. So if you know how to do that stuff and you have those skills on your resume, it's a no brainer for a hiring manager because it's like, oh, he already knows how to do half the job, so I don't gotta train him. So um, that's the reason why, like I say, like the labs are gonna be very crucial to getting a job, and project works are going to be crucial for getting a job on their resume because I said like everyone I know may have the A plus. Everyone, a lot of people may have A plus. A lot of people
Yeah.
may have security plus. But how do you make yourself stand out? Right. That's just the reality of jobs and getting a job.
And
How?
I just want to add on to that. Like, as a hiring manager, I care more about what you are capable of doing and how much it's going to cost to bring you up to speed to where we need you to be versus what pieces of paper you can bring to the door. I don't care what exams you've passed. I mean, granted, there are certain qualifications that regulations might care about, but as a hiring manager, I want to know, can you do the job? Right? And how long is it going to get you? How long is it going to take you to get you to where you need to be so that you can start running on your own? Because I have problems as a manager, right? And I'm hiring a position, I'm hiring a person to fill a position so that I don't have to deal with that on my own, you know? So when you're going in as a newcomer or employee at any level, you're trying to come in and get a job at a new company, how can I add value? That is the question you need to be asking, right? Regardless of the level that you're at. What are the possible pain points that the corporation that I'm trying to get a job at are facing? And what can I help solve? The exams, I mean, yeah, there's some that provide better ROI than others. So there's some that will open more doors than others. You know, at the end of the day, what can you do for the hiring manager so that they don't have to babysit you while you're on the job? Because that's what they care about. They don't want to have to babysit you, you know? So you're absolutely right. What kind of labs have you done? What can you prove in your portfolio? You know, if you're doing GRC, what frameworks, what data security frameworks have you dealt with? What are you aware of, right? If you're going into security engineering or security operations, what technologies have you touched? You know, all of that stuff matters because at the end of the day, it has to tie into what the corporation, what technologies they're facing, what kind of problems they're facing, what kind of value you can provide to help solve those challenges. That's it.
Yeah, exactly. I tell everyone that people look at me like I'm crazy. I'm like the hiring manager just wants someone that is able to work right now on
Yeah,
Monday morning.
exactly.
Be up and running, just do the
Yes.
work, right? That's why the labs, when you do the labs and you just learn about Active Directory, learn about password reset, account creation, user account
Right.
security groups, Office 365, help desk, assigning licenses, unassigning licenses, understanding how
Yep.
licenses work, being able to give out delegation access, mailbox permissions, calendar access, all the stuff that
Yep.
I talk about, all that stuff is involved in a job. So when you go into a job and you go into a hiring manager and you tell them, I know how to do this, it's
Yep.
just checkbox or it check marks of everything that they're looking for. They're like, oh man, I gotta get that guy because that guy knows how to do this job, and I don't gotta train him. He come up and running on Monday morning, and once I hire this guy, I could just worry about the projects or the other stuff that we need to
Right.
work on for the company. So I don't gotta deal with the nonsense.
And I want to
So
add just one more thing to this because there's a lot of different software vendors, a lot of different tool vendors for different types of technology, right? You know, we talk about vulnerability management, there's different types of vendors. We talk about identity access management, there's different types of vendors, right? different corporations are going to use different types of software, different types of providers. It could be because of, the types of tech stack that they have. It could be because of the budget. You got Okta. You mentioned something about Okta and Duo, like big price difference between the two. Paying identity, big price difference. Um, it doesn't necessarily matter if you've touched Okta or if you touched Ping. Most times, nine times out of 10, it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you understand how the technology works. Okay. So don't let that be a stopper for you, a blocker. If you're like, oh, but they only want Okta. They want an Okta identity and access management associate or administrator. Like, okay, well, if you've only worked in Ping and Duo, you should still apply. Like, you're probably okay. If you've worked in Ping and Duo, the technology is pretty same. Yeah, the buttons might be different. Yeah, the GUI might be a little different. Maybe the terminal, like the way you're accessing the software on the back end. So what? The thing still works the same way. Like it's like the same output, the same functionality for the most part is pretty much the same. So don't get too nitty gritty, too technical on the details there. The point is you're able to serve the challenge where the corporation's at. It's an opportunity for you to learn another software vendor. So like don't get hung up on the details.
Yeah, that's the same with like when you're using AWS
Yeah.
and Azure, and they both
Yeah.
look different, but it's almost the
Right.
same thing. It's just they have different naming
Right.
schemes, right? So it's like you could know if you know how to do Azure, and you see a job asking for AWS, maybe you could probably build a lab and sign up for a trial. And then when you look at comparison for both of them, you're like, it's the
Yeah.
same thing, but it's just different naming conventions. But it's the same thing. The
Yep.
GUI is different, but they
Yep.
both do the same thing. So it's like you can still learn it, but also like keep in mind that you're not gonna have 100% of the job requirements because some of these jobs have software that you won't be able to use as a trial. You won't be able to
Yeah.
have access to it, but you probably have other applications or other products that are
Mhm.
similar to it that are almost relatable to that. And you're like, okay, at least I know how to do this. So then when I go to the job
Yep.
interview, I could talk about that because
Yep.
it's almost similar
Yep.
to that.
And always leave off like when
Hmm.
you're talking to the hiring manager, be like, look, no, I don't have experience with Okta. Don't lie. I'm not an encourager of being, lying or telling any type of fallacy, but I understand how the technology works, and I feel 100% confident that I can deliver on the technology that your corporation's, dealing with, right? You're trying to solve this problem. Okay, well, I have a similar experience in another technology that does the same exact thing. I can do this here. And I believe that whatever the knowledge gap is going to be, I feel fully confident that I can handle that in a very short period amount of time to get your business to where it needs to be. Like always lead off of that, right? Whenever you're having that interview or that conversation, the technology is very much very, very similar across different vendors. So I would not let that be a stopping block for you, a blocker for you if you're looking at a job with a company that you're not too sure about but you're interested in.
Yeah, that the key points of this conversation that me and Nick are having is home labs, trying to be like
Mm,
a problem solver. And then number three is your personality. Just remember that when you're going into a job, you gotta have a great personality
yeah.
because if you're a jerk, no one's gonna hire
Yeah.
you. Just being realistic. And then obviously we'll keep going to other conversations, but also it's important that, and I always say this because it's just like random, but it's actually what I always say is that remember that every time you interview or every time you go into a job interview, you're technically a salesperson. So you have to know how
Yeah.
to sell yourself. If you don't know how to sell yourself,
Right.
they're not gonna remember who you are. So you have to be likable, and the hiring manager has to remember you. If they don't remember you, and if you go into a job interview, and I'm just going based on my experience, you go into a job interview, and Nick here asks you what is DNS, and you say domain name server, and then that's all you end up with the conversation. He's not gonna remember you. So you have to give out like when you're trying to go into a hiring manager and you're interviewing with a hiring manager, give him a real life example. Maybe give him an example using your labs. Maybe give him an example of your previous job, but give something that he could remember you with, whether it's a home lab or it's past experience. Don't just say a definition and then that's the end of the
Right.
conversation because he's not going to remember you. I'm just being realistic.
1000%.
So those things are important. Yeah, those things are important, and they have to remember you. And then Obviously, the other stuff is like you said, the thank you email when you're done interviewing someone or
Yeah.
interviewing in companies, and that thank you email. And try to be different from the other candidates, because every candidate is probably going to
Yeah.
give the same answer. You want to try to be different, right? Be unique, be different, and then yeah, just and like I said, be a problem solver as well, because a lot of managers are looking for that right candidate that fits well with them. And obviously, when you're interviewing, it's a two-way streak. Like you're interviewing him, like he's interviewing you, and make sure you guys mesh well with each other. You guys fit well with each other, and that company culture is great. All right, I want to work for them. If not, then go look for another job.
I will
Simple as that.
say
So
one thing to add
those
on
things are
to
important.
this, and I've seen this with a lot of different Trend Micro, Mobiquity, like different types of companies that do this. Like companies are going to advertise what they're working on. What's innovative? What are they excited about? What are they trying to drive revenue towards? And maybe a new product, maybe a new client that they just acquired, or that they're doing business with, right? If they have a job that's available, it's either to deliver on a product that they're just releasing or to serve a client that they're now working with. Like it can be either one of those, right? To get a really good understanding of where the company that you're interviewing with is at and try to meet them where they're at and have the conversation in the interview around that problem, around that need, that's key. Because then you're not just coming in as Joe Schmo that just, is off the street, just a number, right? Now you can leave off really like kind of like giving them something to remember you by. Kevin not only came to the interview, but he's sharp, but he also understands where the company's headed because he read the latest press release, and he understands that we just started doing work with Nestle Corporation, and this job is probably, based on his assumption, going to be supporting Nestle Corporation, right? So this job that he's interviewing for, like this helps him stand out amongst the other candidates that are applying for the same position because he asked questions. The conversation that he had during the initial interview was around the technology, the team, the manager, and the customer for Nestle Corporation. I'm just kind of giving you an example, right? So do your research, go above and beyond, kind of try to get an understanding of where the corporation's at, what are they trying to do. They're hiring for a reason. At the end of the day, it's always for that. It's not because of you, it's not because you're wonderful, it's because they have a need and it's an exchange, right? Find out where the corporation's at and do your research and make sure that that interview is around that topic. It's not just about your background or what certifications you got or blah blah blah. It's about where the corporation's at, what kind of value they need from you as a candidate, as an employee to be able to deliver on. And you coming in equipped and knowledgeable on that can make you stand out instantly. So
Yeah, that's very good advice. Um, but I'm gonna change the topic a
sure.
little bit. So Nick, you have a YouTube channel. So what is that all about? Like, why did you make a YouTube channel? Why did you start a YouTube channel?
Yeah, well, I started a YouTube channel over the pandemic because I was bored. I'll be
You were bored.
honest.
All right then.
I'll be honest.
End of conversation, guys. No, I'm just kidding.
No, I mean I've been in tech for a while. YouTube channel was just kind of a hobby. I saw a couple YouTubers that they made it into something cool, and I was excited about it for different reasons. But one of them just being able to talk to people. Like I've been an instructor for Cybrary, for Pluralsight, for A Cloud Guru, and creating a
Mm,
YouTube channel was just a way for me to be able to speak to the students directly, just be able to help them directly. If I had people asking me questions through the comments, just make a video about it and answer them. A lot of it became about career advice, because I rose through the ranks pretty quickly, making it to vice president of security engineering at a mortgage company in the United
mm.
States, and just talking about hiring and what do managers look for, and what certifications should you get, all the important stuff. So that's really what the channel's about. It's just, if I were to summarize it, it's about how do you learn the right skills and technology for those that are like you and me, that are passionate about technology, we're curious about technology, but ultimately we wanted to use that knowledge to make us some money, to build a living for ourselves, right? That's really what it's about. So yeah, it's just me talking about stuff like that.
Yeah, and then I saw a lot of your videos. You have videos on certifications, you have videos on career advice, you have videos on
Mhm.
skills. I've seen like a lot of videos from you. I know one thing that's cool about your community or what you have is that you use school and you have a school and you have a community in there. And it's actually free. Like you have some that's
Yeah.
free is there. So how why did you make that or why did you get started on that?
So I started a school community to just kind of help people get started in security engineering, just kind of learning some in-demand skills and technology to just, meet where the market's at. If we look at the corporate market, where are they struggling? Where's the knowledge gap there? Right? It's within cloud, it's within application security, it's stuff like that. So what I classify as security engineering. So just kind of giving a place for people to kind of join and meet with each other and ask questions and learn some important skills that are needed in the workplace right
That's
now.
awesome. That's cool. And everyone looks at me like I'm crazy. It's free.
Yeah, it is free.
It's free. So I was like, wait, what? It's free? I'm like, yeah, it's free. So Nick made a community for cybersecurity, which is why I wanted to get him on my channel. I actually watched your video and then I found you on
Mhm.
LinkedIn and I added you on LinkedIn and I'm like, why am I not connected to this guy? And then I added you, I remember, and then I wanted to get you on my channel and I was looking at your videos and I was seeing all the great things you were doing. I'm like, I gotta get this guy on my channel. At least try to help him, try to support him a little bit, which is why I got you. I wanted to get you on my channel because I like the stuff that you're doing, and some of the stuff you're doing is free. And it's just like it's a no brainer. I should get you on my channel trying to help other people, which is why I wanted to get you on my channel. And but yeah, I appreciate you having the community. I mean, I have a Discord. Like, I have a free Discord. It's like you.
It's
Like
cool.
I always appreciate other people trying to help other people. That's
Yeah.
always great. I'm not, and I tell everyone like it's like I have stuff that I like me. I do training like you. I'm an
Yeah.
instructor and everything, but like I have free stuff. Like take advantage of the free stuff first before you pay anything. Just
Yeah.
take advantage of the free stuff. There's a lot of free stuff available out there. You just gotta find it, and then just take advantage of that. And if you gotta pay something, that's fine. But like there's a lot of free resources and YouTube Academy is free, so like everyone has
Yeah.
free stuff on YouTube. So, but I was gonna ask you one final question before we wrap it up. So what is your advice? We went through this whole interview, it's a long interview. What is your like key thoughts and final thoughts? Like, what is your advice for someone watching? Like for like someone new, maybe someone that has experience. What's your
For
advice?
somebody that's wanting to get into cyber.
But just in general, what advice do you want to give someone that's watching this?
Yeah. Another loaded question. I would say, I take Kevin's advice. If you want to get into technology, start off with the free stuff. If you feel like this is something that you really are interested in, start to invest in yourself. Don't be afraid to invest in yourself, right? I have invested a lot in myself, and I'm sure Kevin has as well to get to where we are, right? But try it out. Taste test. I mean, you go to Costco, you're tasting the samples and all that, right? You want to make sure that this is the right thing for you because getting into technology, it's a lot of work. It's not a walk in the park, right? There's, subnetting and IP addresses and how a computer works and security for all this stuff and then software. There's a lot to it. So you really want to take your time as you're easing into it, and then as you are going through it, don't be afraid to invest in yourself. And there's so many ways that you can do that, but just be sure that as you're going through the different layers, you're getting deeper into it, that it's going to bring in the return on the investment, right? So in business, we talk about ROI. So be sure that whatever you're investing, that you can not only make your money back, but you can make more than whatever you invested. So if you spend $500 on a Security Plus voucher to go take the Security Plus exam, that you're not only going to make the $500 back, but you can get more than that because you got a new career. You know what I mean? So just kind of and be sure that that's something that you want to do, right? I've seen a lot of people that they spend some money into cybersecurity or IT. They're not so sure. So take your time, learn about it. Start with the free stuff. There's a lot of great resources out there that are free, and then you can ease into it a little bit harder as you love it, right? It's not for the faint of heart, but it's a very rewarding career as you really dig into it. So Kevin and I, we, I think we can speak to that. We've both been through it, so we love it. So I think you might love it too.
Yeah, we've been through
Yeah,
the wars of IT. We have
we
war
have our
stories
scars.
in IT. We have our scars, exactly. Anyway, with that being said, I hope everyone has a good evening and good night. Hopefully, this was helpful for someone watching today. Nick, thank you again for
Absolutely.
being here. I greatly appreciate it.
All right, take care.
And take care, guys.